Hello, everybody, and welcome to Strip Search, the comic strip podcast. We are back again. I am Pete Chianca, here as always with Dave London. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Pete.
It is June now. We are in the month of June. It is basically summer, although kind of cool today.
Yeah, the unofficial kickoff of summer is Memorial Day, right?
It is, so they say, and we had some warmth then, and now we are sort of embracing the start of the summer season, and very excited about today's show because we got a real, I would use the word superstar for this guest that we have lined up later. Would you use that word?
I would definitely use the word superstar. I would not use the word superstitious or supercilious, but I think superstar works.
I'm not superstitious. I'm a little stitious. To quote Michael Scott. Yes, we will have Keith Knight, gentleman cartoonist and co-creator of the Hulu show Woke. Thanks to the sort of miracle of modern technology, we've actually already done this interview, which is why those of you watching on video will notice, A, that the timestamp is different, and B, that I look like I'm about to die, because I actually had COVID when we interviewed Keith Knight. How's that for dedication, Dave?
You know what? It really is impressive, and we shouldn't make fun of people who get seriously ill with COVID and have to go to the hospital. And luckily, I mean, I know you got it pretty bad, but you were lucky you could stay at home and sort of push your way through the interview.
I did. I mean, I was vaccinated and boosted. It threw me for a loop. But I did bounce back. But this was sort of right in the middle of it, which I didn't realize until I went back and looked at the video, how terrible I looked. But I'm going to throw it out there because this is what I do. And so we already know in advance what a great interview this is going to be because we've already done it.
It's like betting on the race after it's over.
Exactly. Or like going back in time and giving yourself a book of sports winners.
Not that could ever happen.
Exactly. But we did want to say something real quick before we get to Keith Knight. We actually have something new available to the folks out there who follow our comic strip Pet Peeves and some of the things we do. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Dave?
Oh, sure. So as people who may follow us know, every couple of years we publish a compilation book of our strip, Pet Peeves. And typically the book is a compilation of the running strip, which runs 3 days a week. And we have author commentary to add something to the book. But as a fun little game that you and I have done for ourselves, kind of like the New Yorker cartoon caption contest, we run this one-off where I'll draw a picture and Pete will come up with a few captions and we pick the funniest caption and we just run that every once in a while. We call that Pet Peeve Singles. And that started to become popular at some of the events where we've sold some pamphlets of singles, and we decided to package our historic Pet Peeve Singles into an actual bound color book, and that just came out. And you may have a copy to show.
I do. I have one. I have one right here. If you're watching on video, you can see the front cover of that book, and here's the back cover. If you're listening, you're just going to have to go to our website, petpeevescomic.com, or search for us on amazon.com. And you could actually purchase that there. We will have this at all our upcoming events, workshops, anything else where we happen to show up to meet our public, where people will be able to purchase them there. But for those of you who can't make it, you can buy on Amazon or email us at petpeevescomic@gmail.com, and we'll tell you how we can get you out an autographed copy, autographed by both of us. So an exciting development. But other than that,
well, autographed by anyone you want, really. We could just sign it whoever.
It's true.
Abraham Lincoln can autograph your comic book.
Yes, we have no scruples. We'll do if write the check and you'll get whatever you're looking for. So Dave, anything else before we get to Keith Knight?
No, I think let's get to Keith. Great interview, as we know.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. We'll be back in less than a minute, in less than 30 seconds even, with Keith Knight. Welcome back, everyone, to Strip Search, the comic strip podcast. I'm here to introduce our guest this month. Keith Knight is one of the most highly regarded cartoonists in America. His art has appeared in the Washington Post, the Daily Cause, San Francisco Chronicle, the Boston Herald, and many others. His strip, The K Chronicles, launched in the early 1990s and has won the Harvey Kurtzman Award for Best Syndicated Comic Strip. He has brought his comic strip slideshow on America's racial illiteracy worldwide, prompting the NAACP to recognize him as a 2015 history maker. And he is the co-creator and executive producer of Woke, now in its second season on Hulu, based on his life and work. Welcome, Keith Knight.
It is a pleasure and an honor to be here with you, gentlemen.
Well, we are similarly honored to have you. Thank you so much for taking the time out today. And I guess the sort of event that we occasioned this interview is a very special honor that you're getting. Now, you're like us, a Massachusetts person. You went to Malden High School and Salem State, and now you're getting an honorary degree from Salem State, right? How does that feel?
Listen, much to my twin sister's chagrin, I can now, when I buy airline tickets online, I can put that doctor thing, Mister. No, my sister, my twin sister hates it. She's like, I'm the smart one. I'm the smart one. But no, I'm humbled and honored, and I know that I'll have professors there that will try to stop this thing from happening. You know, what can I say? I'm just like, it's all just pretty amazing, and yeah, I'm just what can I say? All I need to do is call my dad out in Vegas to put everything in perspective. He's like, so are they paying you? That's but yeah, everything is amazing and wonderful, and it's considering where the world is at. Like, I just remember when we were shooting the first season, and Salem State had asked me to do this 2 years ago for 2020, but of course, you know that. But I remember when they first called me to do it, and I called my wife, and I said, and at the same time, the Library of Congress asked me to come and do something. So I was like, man, the Library of Congress have called me. We're shooting season 1 of my TV show, and now Salem State wants me to do Commencement. I said to my wife, I don't know. I think something bad's gonna happen.
So you're the cause of COVID? Is that what you're talking about?
I do believe that I made some deal with some shady figure at some point in time, and we are now all paying for that right now.
Well, we won't hold it against you. So we're a big fan. I'll tell you what, I've actually seen both seasons. Pete is a little bit behind in catching up, but let me ask you this. So I know what the show's about. I've watched it. I love it. It's great. But for our viewers who don't know, for the 1 or 2 people out there who haven't seen it and aren't aware of it, can you just give us your 60-second blurb of what is the TV show Woke about?
Well, it's based on my time in San Francisco, and I would say that my character is the Charlie Brown of activism. So he's trying to do the right thing all the time, but it just keeps on sort of backfiring on him. And you know, here's the thing that I think there's a lot of people out there that see the word woke and they're like, oh, you know, I don't want to be preached to. I'm not going to watch this show. And then finally someone gets them to watch it. And I hear so many people saying, why didn't anybody tell me this was going to be funny? You know, like, and that's the thing that I hear more than anything else, is just like, why didn't someone tell me about this before? So that's a lot longer than what you wanted, but that's it.
And to what extent, you know, I know it's based on you and on your life and work, and you know, and it deals with, you know, the main character Keith is you know, sort of subject to police brutality in the first episode, and that sort of you know, is what makes him woke, you know, or at least, you know, forces him to confront some things that he hadn't before in his life and work. So to what extent does that, you know, mirror experience that you had? Did you try to make your work more innocuous when you started out before you know, sort of worked into working more?
In a way, I did, in the sense that the only time I ever got hired, when I first started out, the only time I got hired was in February. That's the only time I got gigs. It was Black History Month. We need a Black cartoonist.
Yeah.
And so I would do the gigs, and then I would get the checks and sign them and cash them. But then I would call up the editor and say, listen, I work the other 11 months of the year too. Like, I'm just not some one-trick pony. Now, once I started working all 12 months of the year, I saw that the comics that really resonated with people the most were the ones about race, were the ones about police brutality, were the ones that I guess I was putting in a perspective in comics that you just never saw quite often. So I became that guy, and I don't mind being that guy because that is, I think telling my story is super important. Now, I was doing these comics before I got stopped by the police, but before that incident in the pilot is based on a real incident. My experience wasn't as physical. It wasn't as dramatic, but I will tell you this: my white roommate came off the bus, got up into the faces of the cops, and they didn't do anything. They treated him like he was the manager. And that was like a huge thing to me. And I'm so glad we got that in the show. Yeah. But it's very similar to my comics, the show. It's like all the episodes in some way, shape, or form have something to do with something that happened to me in real life. But this is TV, so it's just like, what if this happened, instead? Or what if I've always wanted to be on that Henry Louis Gates show on PBS to do my genealogy. But I'm like, what if he goes on there and it goes horribly, horribly wrong, So those are the type of things. And I don't want to give away any spoilers, but some of the things that you think could not be true are actually happened to me in some way, shape, or form. So it's a weird world we live in.
I assume one of the things that didn't actually happen to you is your markers and garbage pails didn't start talking to you.
Listen, if you take the right substance,
that's one of the best. I mean, the voice talent you've got on that show too, doing the voice is just tremendous.
Yeah, I can't believe the amount of talent that is involved in the show. It is incredible. The people, the talent, and in front of the camera and behind the camera, it's been wonderful.
You were talking about how sometimes people get, they hear the name of the show and they don't realize that it's a comedy. What sort of bothers me is how suddenly the right has adopted it woke as their new derogatory term, like bleeding heart liberal or whatever. Does that complicate matters for a television show, named woke?
Yes and no. Actually, I mean, I think every time people just say this all the time, I like leaning into it and just really sort of, I mean, every time you see DeSantis with the Stop Woke Act, I want to use that as an ad, and just you see it when you see it trend. People always like, well, have you seen the show? And it's just an opportunity to check out the show. So they're moving on. Now grooming is the thing. The left is grooming us. They're grooming you. It'll move on to the next thing soon enough. But what I like about the show is its timelessness. People think, oh, you did that just because of George Floyd, but the incident that happened to me happened 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. And, Black folks will tell you that this is an evergreen subject that will exist 20 years from now. So when all of this is said and done, I think the show is still going to have legs.
I was wondering about that because it debuted really just a few months after George Floyd's murder. And was it in the works prior to that, though?
It was. I mean, we shot the whole season at the very beginning of 2020. So when George Floyd played out and everything started happening with the protests, we were like, oh my goodness, are we going to watch our season happen right before us? And I think we were telling Hulu, you have to release this sooner than later because we don't want people to think that, oh, let's do this show, like on the heels of this. And so I think that's one of the reasons why, if you look at some of the early reviews, people are like, well, now that George Floyd has happened, this show is out of touch, blah, 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 blah. But now that season 2 has come out and it's being received really well, and people are going back watching season 1, like all these people are discovering it now. And they're like, oh my goodness, wow, like this is really cool, blah, blah, blah. I think the longer we move away from George Floyd, the more it's going to stand on its own as a really good piece of art.
Let me ask you this: most people, whether you're a cartoonist or whatever, we don't have experience with the TV production process. I think a lot of people are sort of not aware of what goes into putting a show together, and you now have that in your bailiwick. Can you tell us what it involves and what you learned about it and were surprised about and so on?
I was a media communications minor when I was in school, and I've worked on productions and stuff. And I kind of knew some of the stuff that goes in on it. I think it's such a juxtaposition when it comes to being a cartoonist, because you work by yourself, like just alone all the time. And it's being on a TV show is like being part of a huge like symphony orchestra where it's just like everybody has to do their job for it to be, what you want it to be, like this really incredible thing. I think and I was ready. And I think part of the reason why I was ready to work with all these creative people is because they were all, people brought stuff to the table. Even the people that didn't work out brought stuff to the table. And it just all contributed to this really amazing production. Just some examples of, Marshall Todd, the co-creator with me, like the reason why I picked him when we were interviewing different writers is because he was writing stuff, one that had no racial tropes. Like a lot of the stuff people had were like, white girlfriend brings black boyfriend home to her parents, watch the hilarity ensue. It was terrible. Marshall came with something that was so completely different and insane that I just remember calling my producer going, we may have to reel him in, but I think this is our guy. And he instilled Clovis with, like, the Clovis character is totally Marshall, and he created this character that in my comic strip isn't that interesting a character. And then T-Murph comes in. Clovis was supposed to be this huge guy. T-Murph comes in, this huge beard, but tiny guy. He just blows it out of the water. Like everybody who comes in, and just the writer, Brittany, I'm spacing on her name. I feel Brittany Miller, who wrote she wrote the threesome episode, and she wrote the mushroom episode in season 2. What she brings to the table, and Mo Marable is the one who came in and said, I don't want the animated characters to be 2D animation. I want them to be puppetry, and which made it such a higher quality version of the show. And just all those different things come together, and you just have to be comfortable knowing and surround yourself with smarter and more talented people. You'll be okay. So I just never, I knew enough that if things if things were going off the rails, I knew what I wanted, and that's all I can do is make something that I would want to watch. Ultimately, it's the way I do my comics. I draw comics that I would want to read.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make a TV show that I would want to watch, and I think we did that. And as long as I adhere to that, I think we're doing okay. Because I don't want to sound arrogant, but I'd like to think that I have good taste and a good sense of humor. So as long as I'm happy with what we do, I think we'll do okay.
Absolutely. And I know that we want part of today's interview to be about more than just woke, but I want to ask you one last question. Just as a viewer, as Keith Knight, the viewer of the show, do you have a particular favorite episode or a favorite vignette, something that stands out?
Well, I mean, there's a number of different things, but I do love the Cubby episode from season 1 with the koala and shooting it on the bus, but and not just the sort of what you see on the screen, but I just think about sort of the experience of creating it and everything that like I just have in my head how we audition, the different people we auditioned, and when we realized, oh, that's the right person for this. And in that Cubby episode, I was able to get my neighbor David Urey. I got him to be a character on the bus, and it was super important for me to have someone in a mask, because in San Francisco, the old Chinese ladies always had masks on, and so because of that, people thought, like, how did they know people would be in masks? Just like weird things like that. But in the second season, I really like the mushroom episode, but I really love the opening sequence to season 2, because it really encapsulates what we wanted to do, and I just think the opening sequence is it's a joy, and it's sort of a bait and switch, because you think, the character that you see, you're sitting there going, is this the right show? And then my character shows up, which is it's just wonderful how stuff comes together. But I will say, episode 8, which is the end of season 2, episode 8, season 2 was really just amazing to put together too, because it came together in such a weird way, and then turned out to be really satisfying in the sense that it wraps up a lot of things all from throughout the season. So that's a long-winded answer. I understand that.
I don't know. It's great. And like I said, we want to talk about more than just the TV show while we're able to have you and grab your ear for a moment. So you're obviously a cartoonist. You started out as a cartoonist. So let's talk a little bit about your strips. So you have 3 different strips that people are hopefully familiar with. You've got the Nightlife, you've got the K Chronicles, and you've got Think. So can you tell us what's going on with the strips now? Do you have any new strips in the work? What can you tell us about Keith Knight, the cartoonist?
Well, I don't do the Nightlife anymore. I was happily able to retire that once I went into the writer's room for Woke. And the thing was, I was gonna have cartoonists fill in for me. And I'm so glad I didn't. What caused me to really quit that was I watched a motivational video by The Rock. The Rock was addressing the LA Lakers, the young LA Lakers team, not this horrendous team that just happened this past season. But he was addressing this other LA Lakers team, and he was just talking about how just his career and where he started from and all this stuff. And by the end of the video, I like called up the syndicate. I was like, I quit. Hung up the phone. And I'm telling you, The Rock is a motivator. And so I was able to put that to rest. But I have a bunch of strips that have never been in book form. So I'll gradually be printing those, putting those in book form. I continue to do the K Chronicles. I continue to do Think, and I continue to do one-offs. But one other thing that has been on the back burner for quite some time is this graphic novel that I've been working on about my time as a Michael Jackson impersonator. And it's been long gestating. I've done a little bit here, a little bit there, but the show is really sort of put that on the back burner. But I'm now able to sort of get back at it and attack it and really hopefully get it finished before we have to get in. I'm hoping for a season 3 and we get back into creating that. But I hope to get this graphic novel done and out to people before they all die, because it's a Kickstarter campaign. And I think half of the people have died already. So I just want to make sure that the rest,
Yeah, I got to ask.
their heirs get it.
This is the question I ask every cartoonist we talk to. Give us your materials of choice. I always want to know what people are using. Are they going old school? Are they going electronic? Are you using a tablet? Tell us what
I am so old school, man. Micron pigments, really straight up Sharpies.
the talking Sharpie. Yeah.
Yeah, the talking Sharpie. Here's my package of Microns. I do the Bristol, Strathmore Bristol 300 smooth 300 series, and really just a triangle, or I still have a ruler from like 8th grade. I still have a ruler from 8th grade. It says Cameo on it. I wrote Cameo on it like years and years and years ago. I still use that stuff. And I do a lot of drawing in like just composition notebooks and write down notes and all that stuff. I'm writing my commencement speech in that same thing and doodling at the same time. So it's all old, it's all crude. and what's nice about it is all these people who had never heard of me before are discovering my work, and they're buying originals, and they're buying prints of my work and books. And my website crashed. My old website crashed because I was getting too much traffic. They let people were telling me like, your website's down yesterday. And so it's kind of wild. I have a website that's probably 20, 25 years old, and the young people think it's a retro. Oh, that's really cool. You designed it like it's like really old. Like, no,
You just go with that, right? Oh yeah. No, that's on purpose. Yeah.
Ooh, but that, yeah, I'm old school, man. And my kids are doing the same thing, which is really nice. But they think all cartoonists get like TV shows and stuff. So they have a very distorted, like.
Maybe in the future that will be the case.
I do, but everyone's daddy gets a TV show. Yeah.
So do you want to give us a little sneak preview of what you'll be saying in your commencement speech? Any particular themes you'll be touching on?
I will tell them, I am going to admit that I failed ceramics. That's one point I will talk about, is how I failed ceramics, and how failure, like, that we shouldn't be afraid to fail. Like, I know that's a huge point that I will go on, that the failure is not going for the thing that you want. Like a lot of people are afraid to try to go for the thing they want because they're afraid that it won't happen, and some people are afraid of actually succeeding and getting that. And and what happens then? So I would say embrace failure is probably that thing. Because I will say this, the reason why I failed ceramics is I had this teacher who was a super nice guy, but he was the type of guy who says, oh, you don't have to come every time, just make sure you get your stuff done, like very, sort of a pushover. And once you tell me I can't come, I'm not gonna come. So I didn't come, and I didn't get anything done. I need somebody who's going to be on me. Like that's why it's great to have Scott here, because Scott will be like, "Where are you? What are you doing right now?" But
it's hard to do ceramics remotely. You need a kiln. There are tools.
I realized then that I have to do comics with an editor. Like I have to have a deadline every week or every day, or I won't get it done. So I need somebody to answer to. And it was a very smart thing for me to do, because then having this weekly thing, having this daily thing allowed me to accrue like so much intellectual property that I swear to you, when I pitched the show, I have this collection from Dark Horse that's 500 pages thick. It looks like an old phone book. And every time I'd finish pitching the show, I would reach into my bag, I'd stand up and pull out that giant, I apologize, I'm right by a very busy intersection. I pull out that giant book and throw it up in the air, and it would slam on the table. And I would go, there's your first 10 seasons. And I would walk out. And I swear to you, when we were shooting season 1, one of the Hulu executives came to me and said, do you know when you sold your show was when you threw that book on the table? And so a little bit of drama can go a long way.
I love it. This has flown by. I can't believe we're already towards the end of our get together. I'll just ask you before we go. I can't imagine how you'd fit anything else in. We got the Michael Jackson graphic novel. We got season 3 of Hulu, hopefully, of Woke on Hulu. What else? Anything else you'd like to mention before we send you on your way? Other things in the works?
Well, there's my Black Mugshots project, which is I did this website where basically it's an answer to all the proliferation of mugshots that go around that media like to post up of people. And I don't think most people know how damaging that can be, and how just it can prevent you from getting jobs. It can prevent you from getting housing. And a lot of these places will not take it down, will not take them down, and they make money off of it. Like there's literally companies out there that will say, pay us $1,000 and we'll take it down. And so in order to mess with the algorithms of Google, I started posting Black folks with mugs in their hand. And then anybody who's not Black they can send a photo in, but they have to have a Black mug. And I bought the domain blackmugshots.com. And so it's just happy mugshots of people with their coffee. And it took about a month and a half for me to break Google's algorithm and for my picture to show up onto the front page, the first image page of the Google search. But we've had hundreds of mugshots sent to us, and then the Washington Post did a story on it, and then it got like a bunch of other places, including Boston.com.
We did, yeah.
Story on it, and I just got contacted by the NC Justice Center here in North Carolina. There is a bill that's being considered right now that would keep those companies from being able to charge somebody $1,000 to take your mugshot down. And it would order, unless you're convicted of something, your mugshot needs to be removed. Because in countries like Ireland, you can't, it's illegal to post a mugshot if you get arrested. You have to be convicted of something. And most of these mugshots, a lot of these folks aren't convicted of anything. They're arrested, but they don't end up getting prosecuted, you know? So it's just a gateway to screwing people over. And of course, it disproportionately happens to people of color. If you look at any Google News search right now, you will see any pictures of Black folks you generally see is a mugshot. So, so that's the thing I've been working on too. And it's something that's sort of fueling itself, but I'm doing a cartoon about this bill that's being considered. So
That's awesome. I will say I am proudly included. I sent my shot in with my black mug.
oh, okay.
So I'm in the mix.
Thank you. I apologize for not acknowledging that. I'm sorry.
Well, you got hundreds of them. You can't, it's hard to keep track.
It's pretty crazy. And it's really nice to see like all the different types. Some people drew some, other people have sent multiple mugshots. Lamorin, the actor who plays me in the show, sent his mugshot. You know, it's a lot of really good stuff. So
yeah, and it's a great, as somebody who's worked in media, I know that that's been a huge issue. In places I've worked for in the past, you know, they would put up mugshots, you know, like a photo gallery of mugshots with no context.
Yeah.
Just because people clicked on them, and you know, there's no news value in that.
No news value, and you know, it's just I'm learning so much from the NC Policy Center, the Justice Center, because it goes far deeper than I ever thought it would go. But I mean, cops, you know, police are against this bill because like they feel like every time they post a mugshot, it's like, oh, we're doing our job. And that is sort of bad, you know, if that's their thing. And they'll on some of these places, they're I don't know if it's up in Massachusetts, but here in North Carolina, if you go to like a gas station in some obscure place, there'll be a newspaper that's just all mugshots. Like they sell a newspaper that's all mugshots.
I don't think I've seen that in Massachusetts.
It's crazy. I mean, it's morbidly, you're like, oh, okay, well, what did this person do? What did this person get arrested for? But you automatically think that they're guilty, like just by seeing a mugshot. But
yeah,
you know, they could just be loitering somewhere, and it's just like, okay, arrest them. But to police, it's like we're doing our job. You know, we're arresting people, which
and there's very little follow-up on the part of media because
there's
there's no staff, and
there isn't.
no one ever checks to see was this person ever convicted.
No,
it's bad all around.
It's a downer. Yeah.
Well, it's a great project. I encourage everybody to check that out in addition to all the other work you're doing, and of course to watch Woke on Hulu. And Keith Knight, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us today. This was terrific.
Thank you. I appreciate you know, every opportunity to talk about comics, talk about the show, and talk about doing the right thing.
Awesome. Well, enjoy your time at Salem State. It's an honor well deserved, and I'm sure you'll get a kick out of being there.
I will. I definitely will.
And everybody else, we will be back next month with another episode of Strip Search, the comic strip podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.